Hi, everybody. Um, so what we're going to be doing today is taking a look at everybody's drawing in two-point perspective. Um, so two-point perspective, I just want to highlight what makes two-point perspective a little bit different than one-point perspective. The difference is that in one-point perspective, what you're doing is you're looking face on to your shapes. So, we looked straight on at a square, straight on at a rectangle, straight on at our triangles. With two-point perspective, the only thing that's different is that we are actually walking around. If you imagine yourself walking around the shape, either to the left or to the right, so that you're actually seeing your shapes at an angle. Okay. What that does is it takes this one point that you had originally back in one-point perspective, everything was one point, and it actually just splits it into two. Because now what's happening is because we're seeing at an angle, we actually have our angles going to the left and the right because of us being turned. Okay, so that's the only difference, is that it's our viewpoint. The shapes are still exactly the same. It's just that we're walking around to an angled position. So if you keep that in mind, I think it makes the two-point process make more sense. What is two-point perspective? Nothing more than a change in where we stand. Okay, so I think that's it. Just looking at the drawings that have been submitted, I think everybody's presentation looks really, really good here. Carol, yours is maybe a touch dark. You could probably lighten that in Photoshop a little bit, but everybody's drawing looks very in focus. And I think, let's see, Hanoi, I don't know if I hope I'm saying your name right. If you just please feel free to correct me in the comments, just give me a phonetical pronunciation of your name. But in yours, you just want to rotate this, and I'll show you how to do that in Photoshop if you need some assistance. But otherwise, that looks good too. So I'm glad to see that, as we talked about in week one, presentation is so important in this class to be able to document the work that you do, all the hard work. So I think everybody's coming along for those that have submitted. Okay, so I'm just going to go in the order that people have submitted. And as usual, we're just going to talk about what's working and what you can work on for the final submission. So you can really do think about this particular drawing that you submit to the task area. It's always your draft. It's never your finished drawing. It's always your draft. It's always a work in progress. And so you can always expect to do a little more work on your drawing, even maybe starting on a new drawing, and that's okay too. That's exactly what we might expect to see in a design class. Okay, Jesus. Okay, yeah, I think you did a nice job here at demonstrating an understanding of how the perspective works. Everything looks like you're vanishing it correctly, which is really the most important part of this drawing, is just making sure that you get your shapes vanishing to your vanishing points, and also that you set your drawing up in terms of having the horizon line and two vanishing points at the left and right of your drawing. Your guidelines are lightly sketched in, which is great. I think that looks really good. So I would say, and it looks like your triangles look really good too in terms of the way you set them up so that you get that middle point, which is what we're looking for here. In this, what we're actually doing here is just making sure our triangle has equal length sides in two-point perspective so that we get a pitched roof that looks like it's centered, like it would be, on a house. That doesn't mean that that's always the way you have to draw a triangle. If you're not doing a pitched roof, then you might not want to do that. But in this case, this center, and you'll notice that through the rest of the class that we're going to be doing similar things with different types of elements. In this case, we inscribe the front to get a center point, and you'll see that idea repeated throughout the class in different forms. So I would say just a few things that you could work on. The first is just make sure that you've got half your shapes solid. It looks like this is solid, so I might do maybe one other, maybe one other that's solid. You could put in a few more shapes. The assignment says to fill the page. when you fill, add more shapes, I think you've done a good job here at putting them in the center. That's actually in the center area. That's exactly really what you want to do when you start working with 2 and 3 point perspective is you want to work between those vanishing points. You don't want to necessarily get too close to the vanishing point. So, you know, you have a little bit of space here you could work with, maybe right in here that you could add some more shapes. But you don't want to get too close to this vanishing point, so maybe just sort of end here. You also maybe don't want to get too far below the horizon line. Like if you start going a little further down or a little further up, you will, it's interesting to see what happens when you do that. You will start noticing that the shapes start deforming a little bit. They look most natural within sort of like a a central area. Okay, that's the main thing. You could maybe tidy up some of your lines here, making sure that they're, you know, as clean as possible. So those are 3 areas you could work on. Um, but you know, otherwise, I think you did a good job on this assignment. Hey, Patricia, yeah, I I think it's great that you just submitted a draft where you were at in the process. I always want and encourage students to submit a draft, even if it doesn't feel like it's complete or there's more to work on, just because, you know, this is the draft stage and you can submit your assignment, get some feedback in the critique, and then just keep working on it. So, good plan. Okay, I'm going to start with your horizon line and your vanishing points here. Um, so what you've done here is you've actually you've set it up. It's okay with the horizon line here and the vanishing points, but a tip to make it even better when is on this side right here. You've got a little bit of room here left on the horizon line. And now I know our tutorials don't necessarily um, emphasize this, but if you go all the way to the edge of your paper, um, when you put the vanishing, or pardon me, the vanishing points in, that will give you more space in your page. Like if you put it all the way over here, then you'll actually have more space in your drawing to draw from. You won't have the more limited space. So take advantage of the whole page. That really, really helps. Okay, so let's just take a look at the vanishing of your lines here, and that looks good. Very good. Yes. So I think you've done a nice job here at vanishing all of these lines. So that looks really great. And I think on the other side too, you've done a nice job here at vanishing. Maybe, so can you see here this line right here? So this is where your vanishing point currently is. So this would be the line rather than this line right here that you have up here. Okay. When you drew it, you probably thought, hey, that doesn't look right. It seems too angled, like it's too extreme. But that is, you know, that is the way it is. And that's why, you know, so if you have the vanishing point a little further out, you will notice that this shape won't have such extreme angles. It won't feel so weird to you. So that's what I was talking about here. But all of these all look pretty good. This line right here, can you see this line here needs to be here, right here. And then it's going to join up right here to, if that's your angle. So this shape looks a little bit wonky here. You might just want to redraw this. I would, you know, I would just redraw your drawing just because it'll go so much faster. You'll notice that. Okay, so something else you want to do here is you want to overlap at least one shape. Okay, so just, you know, so what, you know, start by lightly, like you could start with another shape down here, for example, if you use this drawing, just to lightly sketch it in and then darken it so that it overlaps. Make sure that you keep, with your square, you keep these lines as square as possible right here so that they don't angle so much. Just look at the sides of your page. Go over here and look at the sides of your page, or some of the other shapes, like all of the rest of these look pretty good here. This guy looks a little angled, so you'd want to kind of clean that up a little bit just to make sure it looks really square. Okay, when you're doing your triangles on top, what you want to do here is leave your guideline in. You want to put this line here, right? So across, and then, so this is a little hard in Photoshop, but then you're going to go all the way up, which I think you did here. It looks like maybe your guideline just got erased. Okay, and then this line is actually going to come right down here, so we won't actually see the edge of the roof. So Now you're going to fill in the bottom here. So you're getting close to the horizon line, so things do disappear here, but you do want to just make sure to get the bottom here of that line, so you want to put that line, for your bottom in. Okay, so that's the main thing here. Just kind of, I would just probably go through and just redo a new drawing. Make sure that you've got everything sort of tidied up, cleaned up. Have your guidelines sketched in. Don't erase your guidelines, just keep them showing, and have one overlapping shape. I think you'll be in good shape then. Okay, Hanoi. So in Photoshop, now I apologize that my video recording is a little bit above the menu, but in Photoshop, if you go up to the image menu, which I'm going to show with the drop-down menu right here, image, and then if you go to image rotation, what you're just going to be doing is rotating it. So I'm going to rotate it, let's see here. So I think I always get a little bit confused here. I sometimes just have to play with it, but I think 90 degrees clockwise will do it. So, yeah, otherwise I think your presentation looks fantastic here in terms of your photograph or your scan. Yeah, okay, so here's your vanishing points. You've got some overlapping, which is great. You've got some see-through, good. Yeah, overall, I think this looks really, really good. 1, 2, 3. So you just want to just keep your guidelines in here. Oops, let's just turn that line down. Just keep your guidelines in for how you created the roof here. Just make sure you show that, just indicate, and it looks like you did it very accurately. You want to have one more example of a house, like a rectangle or a square with the roof on top, so you could maybe add one right here. That seems like a good shape here. You could do it up here as well. You could fill the space a little bit more. You've got some empty space in here, so you could add in a few more shapes, here maybe, maybe in here. Otherwise, I think it looks really good. You've got your craft, I think, looks really nice here, very tidy and clean. And I don't know if I mentioned this in the week 1 critique, but in drawing, in general, there's so many different styles of drawing, just in the whole realm of drawing, like freehand drawing, observational drawing, life drawing, gesture drawing. And so, my emphasis on precise and clean drawings in this class is not because that's the way drawing needs to be in general, like outside of perspective, even in perspective. But when you're learning drawing, especially in these types of drawings here, it's really so important to kind of do things with an attention to the craft of it, because that's how you see how perspective is forming and learn the most from it. And it's also a way to demonstrate an understanding of it. So my emphasis here on clean and precise drawings is just for perspective. In outside of perspective, or after you've learned perspective and really can, really throw your weight around in it, then you can start really doing some kind of, you might want to draft your drawing out first, lightly, and then freehand it, which is, like to freehand all your shapes can give you a beautiful look. But just a note here that the emphasis here is because of precision, is because of what we're learning, not because of drawing. Okay, that's it. I think that's the only thing you really need to work on here. Just one final thing, Hanoi. If you don't have Photoshop for whatever reason, then there are other programs that you can use to do things like rotate your drawing. Let me know if you need some help with that. Okay, Carol. Yeah, overall this looks good. So you've got all of the different shapes, the required shapes. You have an overlapping section, which is great. You have some elements that are see-through and some that are opaque, which is great. And looks like you drew this, correctly. Just make sure that you keep those guidelines in whenever you construct something at this point, just to keep those in there so that you can see how you did that. Yeah, this looks really good. So the only thing that I would recommend, besides having the guidelines in here, lightly sketching them in for inscribing your let me just hold on a second here. I might just not be able to see them. Yeah, maybe just put them in a little bit more. And then the only other thing is, you've got a little bit of empty space in these areas here. You could probably fill the page with a few more shapes, um, and just keep, building on what you're building.